I stood there in my emerald gown, smiling like the perfect trophy wife while my husband kissed another woman behind the velvet curtains. He thought his reputation was bulletproof. He thought I was just the silent partner in his spotlight. But the next morning, I did not pack a bag or scream. I simply turned on AirDrop. When every iPhone in the office started buzzing at once, his millionaire facade burned to the ground right in front of his eyes. My name is Harper Sloan. I am 32 years old, living in a colonial-style house in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina. That looks like it was ripped straight out of a magazine spread. From the street, my life is a masterclass in stability. We have the manicured lawn, the 2 luxury SUVs in the driveway, and the dinner parties where everyone drinks Pinot Noir and talks about interest rates. But inside, the foundation had been cracking for months. I just chose not to look down until the floor started to give way. My husband is Miles Ashford. He calls himself a self-made millionaire, a title he wears like a heavy gold chain. He is a senior partner at Van Trell Advisory Group, a boutique financial consulting firm that handles money for people who have too much of it. Miles is addicted to 2 things. He is addicted to the image of power, and he is addicted to the sound of his own voice telling people how he built his empire from nothing. I am not in the spotlight business. I work in risk management and internal controls for Sable Point operations. My job is to look at a spreadsheet of 10,000 rows and find the single line where the numbers do not add up. I find the leaks. I find the fraud. For 5 years, I applied that scrutiny to everything except my own marriage. I told myself that Miles was just ambitious. I told myself that the late nights were just part of the grind. But you can only ignore the data for so long before the anomaly becomes the trend. It started at a dinner party 2 weeks ago. Miles was holding a crystal tumbler of scotch, holding court with 3 of his junior associates. I walked up to hand him a napkin, and he wrapped an arm around my waist. It felt heavy, like a prop being moved into place. "See, this is why I succeed," Miles announced to the room, his voice booming a little too loudly. "Harper is the safe choice. Every man needs a safe harbor when he is out conquering the world. She is my anchor. Stable. Predictable." The associates laughed politely. I smiled, the practiced smile of a woman who knows her lines, but my blood ran cold. Safe. Predictable. He was not describing a wife. He was describing an insurance policy. I took a sip of my wine and filed that comment away in the mental ledger I had just started keeping. The real red flag came 3 days later. It was a Tuesday evening. Quiet. I reached for the family iPad on the kitchen island to check the weather for the weekend. I typed in the passcode we had used for 4 years. The screen shook. Incorrect passcode. I tried again. Incorrect passcode. Miles walked into the kitchen right then. He saw the device in my hand and stiffened. It was a micro-reaction. A split second of panic before the mask slid back into place. "Oh, I changed that," he said, opening the fridge and grabbing a sparkling water. Just a security update. Babe. IT guys at work said home networks are vulnerable. I needed to lock it down. "You did not tell me," I said, my voice even. "I forgot," he said, closing the fridge door a little too hard. I will set you up with a guest account later. Do not worry about it." He did not look at me. He looked at the smart home hub on the counter instead. "Hey," he asked, his tone too casual. "Does the camera in the living room cover the hallway, or is there a blind spot by the study?" Why I asked? "Just checking coverage," he mumbled. "For burglars." He was lying. I knew it in my gut, the same way I knew when a quarterly report was hiding a loss. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Nora Belling, my best friend since college. She had been at the dinner party. She saw through Miles faster than anyone. "You okay? He is performing big time. That speech about you being safe." It sounded like he was trying to convince himself. I typed back a single word. Fine. I was not fine. I was planning. I set a rule for myself right there in the kitchen while Miles tapped nervously on the counter. I would not ask questions he could lie his way out of. I would not scream. I would not cry. Silence is the best way to gather intelligence. If I confronted him now, he would gaslight me. He would call me paranoid. He would hide his tracks better. I needed hard data. I needed receipts. Next week was the Van Trell Advisory Group office holiday party. It was the biggest event of the year. Miles was scheduled to receive the Partner of the Year award. He had been talking about it for months. He needed that night to be perfect. He needed his trophy wife in a green dress standing next to him, clapping while he accepted his plaque. I looked at the back of his head as he walked out of the kitchen. He thought I was the safe choice. He thought I was just part of the furniture. He had no idea that he was living with a risk assessment auditor who had just flagged him as a liability. I was going to that party, and I was going to make sure he got exactly what he deserved. I did not go looking for lipstick stains or the scent of cheap perfume. Those are the mistakes amateurs make when they suspect their husbands are straying. I am a risk manager. I know that people lie, but numbers never do. If you want to find the rot in a company, you do not listen to the CEO's speech. You look at the cash flow. So, 3 nights after the dinner party, while Miles was snoring with the confidence of a man who thinks he owns the world, I opened my laptop and began my audit. I did not look for the affair immediately. I looked for the leverage. The first thing I noticed made my stomach turn, not out of heartbreak, but out of sheer stupidity on my part. For years, I had let our finances run on autopilot. I pulled up the primary checking account and categorized the outflows. My salary steady, reliable, and substantial was the engine keeping our household running. My paycheck covered the mortgage on our 4-bedroom house. My paycheck paid the electric bill, the landscaping crew, and the insurance premiums. And Miles, his massive commissions and quarterly bonuses were nowhere near the bills. They were funneled into what he called discretionary spending. High-end golf clubs, dinners at steakhouses that cost $400 a plate, networking gifts. I was paying for the roof over our heads while he was paying to look like a king. I closed that tab and opened a new browser window. I needed a lifeboat. I found a small credit union 40 minutes away, one that had no affiliation with the major banks Miles used. I applied online for a checking account in my name only. I set up a direct deposit to divert 20% of my paycheck into that account starting the very next pay period. I selected the paperless option. No mail, no notifications, just a silent accumulation of freedom. Then, I went back to the hunt. I started digitizing everything. I scanned the deed to the house, the car titles, and our marriage license, uploading them to an encrypted cloud drive that Miles did not know existed. I downloaded 3 years of bank statements. I was looking for patterns, for anomalies, and there it was. It was a recurring payment, processed on the 3rd Friday of every month. It was labeled simply as consulting fee. The amount varied slightly, sometimes $1,500, sometimes $2,000, but it was always there. The recipient was not a corporation or an LLC. It was just an initial and a last name C. Vale. I stared at the screen. I had never heard of a vendor named C. Vale. I did not wake Miles up to ask him. Asking him would give him time to invent a story. Instead, I opened his digital calendar on the iPad he had forgotten to log out of the cloud. I cross-referenced the dates of the transfers with his schedule. January 18th, client dinner, downtown, transfer to C, Vale $1,500. February 22nd, late strategy meeting, transfer to C, Vale $1,800. March 15th, overnight conference in Charlotte, transfer to C, Vale $2,000. The pattern was so obvious it was insulting. Every time he made a transfer, he was physically unaccounted for, but it was the location data that nailed it down. I checked the transaction history for his credit card on those same nights. A charge for drinks at the Umstead Hotel bar would appear at 9 in the evening. The transfer to C, Vale, would happen at 10. This was not a business expense. This was rent, or an allowance. I felt a wave of nausea hit me, hot and sharp. but I swallowed it down. I could not afford to be the weeping wife. I had to be the auditor. I needed the name behind the initial. 2 days later, I took a half day off work. I drove out to a nondescript office building in a strip mall in Durham, far enough away that I would never run into anyone from our social circle. Dahlia Reyes was a divorce attorney who looked like she ate sharks for breakfast. She sat behind a desk cluttered with files, wearing a sharp blazer and reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. I placed a thick envelope on her desk. It contained $500 in cash, my consultation fee. I did not want a charge appearing on our joint statement. I do not want a file opened yet. I said, my voice steady. I just want to know my exposure. Dahlia counted the cash quickly and looked up at me. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, she said, her voice raspy and direct. That means we split the marital assets. But if he is spending marital funds on a paramour, well, that is what we call dissipation of assets. We can claw that back. I handed her the printout of the C. Vale transfers. I think he is keeping someone, I said. I think I have been paying the mortgage so he can pay her allowance. Dahlia looked at the numbers, then back at me. She took off her glasses. Get me a name. Harper. Get me a face. And do not, I repeat, do not confront him until we have the papers drafted. If you scream at him tonight, he will hide assets by tomorrow morning. Can you keep your mouth shut? I thought about Miles's smug face at the dinner party. I thought about the security camera he installed to watch the hallway. Oh, I can be quiet, I said. I am very good at being the silent partner. Miles came home that evening with the frantic energy of a director trying to manage a failing stage production. He did not kiss me hello. He did not ask about the leak in the upstairs bathroom I had texted him about. He walked straight to the kitchen island, poured himself a sparkling water, and looked at me as if I were a mannequin that needed restyling. For the holiday party next week, wear the gold dress, he said, not asking, but instructing. Or maybe the emerald one. Something expensive. I need the family image to be solid. The partners are watching everything this year. He took a sip of his water, his eyes scanning his phone rather than my face. I need you to look like you belong on the arm of a partner of the year, he added, finally glancing up. Of course, I said, cutting a lemon for his drink with precise, sharp movements. I want you to look good. Miles, how was the prep meeting? Stressful. He sighed, leaning back against the counter. The vendors are a nightmare. We are trying to coordinate the PR release for the award, and the liaison is constantly asking for approvals. He paused for a second, a split second of hesitation that a normal wife would have missed, but I was not a normal wife anymore. I was an auditor. This girl, Cameron Vale, he said, saying the name with a casualness that felt rehearsed. She is handling the press for the event. Smart kid, but she needs a lot of hand-holding. My heart did not pound. My hands did not shake. Instead, my brain simply clicked into place like a lock engaging. Cameron Vale. Sounds exhausting, I said, handing him the glass. Do you want dinner? I made roast chicken? No, he said, checking his watch. I have a call in 10 minutes. I will take it in the garage. Better reception. He walked away without asking a single question about my day. I was background noise. I was the static on the radio that he tuned out so he could listen to his own song. As soon as the door to the garage clicked shut, I pulled out my phone. I did not go to Instagram. I went to LinkedIn. I typed in the name, Cameron Vale. There she was. 27 years old. Her profile photo showed a young woman with bright eyes, perfect teeth, and the kind of eager-to-please smile that older men mistake for admiration. Her job title was Client Relations Manager at Apex PR Solutions, a firm I knew Van Trell used for their events. I switched tabs to the digital bank statement I had saved on my secure drive. I zoomed in on the recurring payments I had found 2 days ago. See? Vale. It was not a consulting firm. It was not a cryptic LLC. It was her. My husband was paying a 27-year-old PR manager $2,000 a month. For what rent, student loans. Silence. The puzzle pieces did not just fit, they slammed together. I walked softly to the door connecting the kitchen to the garage. I did not open it. I pressed my ear against the wood. The garage was insulated, but Miles was pacing, and his voice carried when he thought he was alone. I told you. His voice was low, but it lacked the sharp, commanding edge he used with me. It was soft, pleading. I told you I have to play the part next week. She is just a prop. Okay, you know you are the one I actually see. I pulled back from the door. I checked the time on my phone. 7:42 in the evening. I opened my notes app and typed it in. 7:42 p.m. Garage call. Admitted wife is a prop. I did not storm in there. I did not throw open the door and scream at him for buying his mistress with our mortgage money. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. I opened the safe in the back of the closet. My hands moved steadily. I took out my passport. I took out my birth certificate. I took out the original copy of our marriage license and the deed to the house. I put them into a plain manila folder. Tomorrow. These would go into a locked drawer at my office at Sable Point. If Miles decided to get nasty, he would find that he could not hold my identity hostage. I sat on the edge of the bed and sent a text to Nora. If I ever decide to stop playing the role of the perfect wife, do not ask me why. Just ask me what I need, Nora replied instantly. I have the shovel if you have the body. I almost smiled. Miles came upstairs 30 minutes later, looking refreshed, the tension gone from his shoulders. He had gotten his fix. Sorry about that, he said, unbuttoning his shirt. Work never stops. You know how it is. I know exactly how it is, I said, lying back against the pillows. He thought the holiday party was going to be his coronation. He thought he was going to stand on that stage and accept his award while I clapped politely in the shadows. But he was wrong. The party was not going to be his coronation. It was going to be my presentation. If he wanted a spotlight so badly, I was going to make sure the light was bright enough to show everyone exactly what kind of man he really was. Miles always bragged about the efficiency of his office. He loved to talk about the ecosystem, about how everyone at Vantrell Advisory Group used iPhones and MacBooks so they could share files instantly. He told me once that they could airdrop a quarterly report to 50 people in a conference room in under 10 seconds. He thought it was a symbol of their agility. I realized it was actually a vulnerability. If you can share a report in 10 seconds, you can share a scandal in 5. I spent the next 2 days assembling what I called my evidence package. I did not need to act like a hacker in a movie. I just needed to be organized. I took the screenshots of the bank transfers to see Vale. I took the photo of his credit card statement showing the hotel bar tab. I compiled them all into a single high-resolution PDF file. I named it something that would make anyone curious enough to click Holiday Photos PDF. It looked innocent. It looked like a file filled with memories. In reality, it was a file filled with ammunition. The final piece of the puzzle fell into my lap because Miles was arrogant enough to get sloppy. We had a shared email account for household utilities, the electric bill, the water, the internet. Miles usually ignored it, but occasionally he used it when he did not want things cluttering his work inbox. On Tuesday evening, I picked up the iPad in the living room to pay the water bill. The mail app was open, and there, right at the top of the unread list, was a confirmation email from Bellrin Lounge. Reservation confirmed, table for 2. Friday, December 19th, 8:30. My stomach tightened. Friday was the night before the holiday party. He told me he had a pre-game strategy dinner with the senior partners. He lied. I opened the email. It was addressed to Miles, but he had accidentally auto-filled the household address instead of his personal one. I did not delete it immediately. First, I forwarded it to my secret email account. Then, I deleted it from the inbox. Then, I went into the trash folder and deleted it from there, too. I scrubbed the digital floor until it sparkled. I needed Miles to walk into that lounge thinking he was invisible. Later that night, while I was wiping down the kitchen counters, Miles left his phone next to the coffee maker while he went to shower. The screen lit up with a notification. I glanced over. "Can't wait to be seen with you tonight. The dress I bought is—" The message cut off on the lock screen, but it was not the message that made my blood run cold. It was the contact name. He had saved her as Vendor C. He did not even save her name. He categorized her like a business expense. He labeled her like a supplier of office paper or toner cartridges. It was dehumanizing. It was corporate. It was the most insulting thing I had ever seen. And strangely, it made it easier to do what I was about to do. If he saw people as line items, then I would audit him like one. The next morning, I drove back to Dahlia's office. I needed to know if my plan would backfire legally. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, Dahlia told me, leaning back in her leather chair and tapping a pen against her chin. That means the court divides property fairly, but not always equally. However, if we prove marital misconduct that affects the finances, the judge can shift that split. I showed her the Vendor C screenshot and the Bellrin Lounge reservation. "This creates a pattern," I said. "He is spending family money to maintain a relationship that destroys the family." Dahlia nodded slowly. She looked at me with a mixture of professional respect and warning. "This is good, Harper. This is very good. But you have to be careful. If you blow this up in private, he will spin it. He will say you are crazy. He will hide the rest of the money. I do not plan to do it in private." I said. Dahlia took off her glasses and leaned forward, her voice dropping to a serious whisper. "Listen to me. Revenge is satisfying, but leverage is expensive. If you humiliate him publicly, he will come for you with everything he has. You need to make sure the blow is so hard that he cannot get back up. Do not scream. Do not make a scene. You wait until the moment is perfect. The holiday party," I said. "He is accepting an award. The room will be full of everyone he needs to impress. Then you wait until the applause dies down," Dahlia said. "And you make sure your hands are clean when the building collapses." I left her office with a calmness that scared me. I had the date. I had the method. I had the legal strategy. Miles wanted to be the center of attention. I decided right then that I would give him exactly what he wanted. I would give him an audience he would never forget. The ballroom of the downtown Raleigh hotel smelled like pine needles and expensive cologne. It was a suffocating mix of holiday cheer and corporate ambition. Towering Christmas trees dusted with fake snow stood in the corners, and a live jazz band played a smooth, unobtrusive version of Silent Night. The lighting was dim and golden, designed to make everyone look younger and richer than they actually were. I stood there, holding a flute of champagne I had no intention of drinking, watching the room with the detached precision of a security camera. Miles had his hand on the small of my back. It was not a caress. It was a claim of ownership. He guided me through the crowd of partners and clients, stopping every few feet to accept a compliment. "And this is Harper," he said to a gray-haired man who I knew was a potential investor. "My rock. The woman who keeps the home fires burning while I am out here hunting." The men laughed. I smiled. It was the same smile I had worn for 5 years. But tonight, the muscles in my cheeks felt tight. "Charmed," the investor said. "I am the lucky one," Miles said, taking a large swallow of his scotch. "Behind every great man, right, I wanted to throw my champagne in his face. Instead, I just nodded. Then I saw her. Cameron Vale was standing near the Van Trell branded photo wall. She was impossible to miss. While the wives wore tasteful black or deep emerald, Cameron was in a dress the color of fresh blood. It was silk, backless, and clung to her like a second skin. She was holding a martini and looking over the rim of her glass directly at Miles. It was a look of total, terrifying familiarity. It was the look of a woman who knew what he looked like when he slept. Miles laughed loudly at something the investor said. He threw his head back, exposing his throat, completely relaxed. He was drinking too much. I knew the signs. When Miles drank, he got sloppy. He forgot to check his blind spots. My eyes drifted from Cameron's face to her neck. A delicate silver chain rested against her collarbone, holding a single, teardrop-shaped diamond. My breath hitched in my throat. I knew that necklace. I had seen a line item on the credit card statement from a jeweler in North Hills just 10 days ago, $3,200. At the time, I thought maybe, just maybe, he had bought it for me for Christmas. But my neck was bare. Miles. A booming voice interrupted my audit. It was the CEO of Vantrell, Partner of the Year. We are all proud. You really are the model of a modern family man. Miles beamed. He squeezed my waist tighter. Well, sir, I know the value of a blue-chip stock. Miles slurred slightly. You pick stability. You pick safety. Then you can have your fun on the market. Right. The CEO laughed, missing the double meaning entirely. I did not miss it. I was the blue-chip stock. I was the boring, safe investment that allowed him to gamble elsewhere. I have a terrible headache, I whispered to Miles, leaning in close. The lights are a bit much. I am going to step out for some air. Fine, fine, he said, waving me off without looking at me. Do not be too long. The awards start in 20 minutes. I walked away. I did not go to the bathroom. I did not go to the lobby. I slipped through the side doors into the service corridor that ran behind the ballroom. The music was muffled here, the jazz reduced to a dull thumping bass. The air was cooler. I walked past a stack of unused chairs and stopped near a heavy velvet curtain that separated a private alcove from the main hall. I heard a giggle. It was light, airy, and familiar. Miles, stop. Someone might see. A female voice whispered. Let them see, Miles's voice replied, thick with alcohol and arrogance. I am the king of the castle tonight. I can do whatever I want. I stood frozen in the shadows. I did not need to see them, but I needed to be sure. I moved an inch closer to the gap in the curtain. They were there. Miles had Cameron pressed up against the wall. His hands were in her hair, messing up the expensive blowout she had probably paid for with my money. He kissed her messy, hungry kisses that he had not given me in years. Cameron pulled back slightly, her hands resting on his chest. What about her, she asked, tilting her head toward the ballroom. What if she finds out Miles laughed? A low, cruel sound. Harper, he scoffed. Harper does not look for things. She is happy in her little bubble. She likes the house. She likes the car. As long as the check's clear, she is blind. Cameron smiled, and she traced the line of his jaw with her finger. You are bad, she murmured, but do not worry. Your wife will never leave you. She does not have the guts. I felt a coldness settle over me that was sharper than any winter wind. It was absolute. It was final. They were not just cheating on me, they were laughing at me. They thought I was weak. They thought I was trapped by my own comfort. I stepped back from the curtain, my heels silent on the carpet. I did not burst in. I did not scream. I did not give them the satisfaction of seeing my pain. I turned around and walked down the long, empty hallway toward the exit. I did not cry. Crying was for people who had lost. I had not lost. I had just finished my investigation. Enjoy your night. Miles, I thought as I pushed open the heavy doors to the parking lot, because tomorrow morning I am going to burn your kingdom down. Miles stumbled through the front door an hour after I did. He reeked of scotch and self-satisfaction. He tossed his jacket onto the foyer bench, loosened his tie, and looked at me where I sat on the living room sofa in the dark. You still up, he mumbled, blinking at the lack of light. You okay? You left early. Just a migraine, I said, keeping my voice low. Right. Well, get some rest, he said, already turning toward the stairs. Big day tomorrow. Post-party recap. He did not wait for a response. He walked up the stairs, and 5 minutes later, the heavy silence of the house was broken by the rhythmic sound of his snoring. I did not go to bed. I sat there in the shadows, staring at the ceiling fan slicing through the air, feeling like a detective reviewing the case file one last time before making an arrest. I picked up my personal iPad. I went into the settings. I changed the device name from Harper's iPad to Conference iPad. It was generic. It was official. It was the kind of name that people blindly accepted in a corporate environment. I toggled the AirDrop setting. Receiving off. But tomorrow morning, at exactly the right moment, I would switch it to everyone. I needed Miles to be completely blindsided. I needed him to walk into that office feeling untouchable. So, I laid a soft trap. I picked up my phone and sent him a text message, even though he was asleep upstairs. Thank you for tonight. You really shined on that stage. I am proud to be your wife. It was the perfect lie. When he woke up and saw it, his ego would inflate just enough to block out any paranoia. He would think he had gotten away with it. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was Nora. I smell smoke. Her text read, "Did something happen? You left without saying goodbye." I typed back slowly, "Yes. I found the fire. And this time, I am not asking for permission to put it out." I closed the chat and opened my work email. I had been quietly monitoring an internal job posting at Sable Point Operations for a risk assessment lead in Savannah, Georgia. It was a lateral move, unglamorous, but it came with a relocation package. I drafted a request to HR, marking it urgent, citing personal family restructuring. I expected a bureaucratic delay. Instead, a reply pinged back within 10 minutes. The HR director was working late. Request approved pending final sign-off. We are desperate for coverage in the Southeast region. Can you start in 72 hours? I stared at the screen. 72 hours. Miles thought I was trapped in this house, bound by the mortgage and the social expectations of Raleigh. He thought I had nowhere to go, but the door had just swung wide open. I went to the guest room closet and pulled out a nondescript duffel bag. I did not pack clothes for a vacation. I packed for survival. 2 changes of business casual clothes, toiletries, my laptop charger, the hard drive with the backup evidence. I carried the bag out to the garage in my stocking feet, careful not to make a sound. I opened the trunk of my SUV and tucked the bag under an old, oil-stained blanket we used for the dog. I was not running away. Running implies fear. I was executing a strategic withdrawal. Back inside. I sat at the kitchen island and drafted 2 emails. The first was to my parents, keeping it brief and devoid of emotion. Miles and I are separating. I am safe. I will explain later. The second was to Dahlia Reyes. The evidence will be distributed at 9 in the morning. I need the filing ready to go immediately after. I saved them both to drafts. I would hit send only when the damage was irreversible. I caught my reflection in the dark window of the kitchen. I looked tired, but my eyes were clear. Miles expected the weeping wife. He expected the woman who would scream and throw vases and beg him to choose her. He was prepared for a soap opera. He was not prepared for an audit. I checked the time. It was 3 in the morning. I crept upstairs and slipped into bed next to him. He shifted in his sleep, his arm flinging out to hit my side. I moved away to the edge of the mattress. Sloan, he muttered in his sleep. It sounded like Sloan, my last name. But then he murmured again. So, good. I closed my eyes. Sleep well, Miles, I thought. Because when you wake up, you will still be a millionaire. But by lunchtime, you will be a liability. I set my internal alarm. I had an appointment with Dahlia at 9 o'clock sharp, and before that, I had a delivery to make. The morning sun hit the kitchen granite with a brightness that felt aggressive. Miles did not wake up until 10 o'clock. He came downstairs wearing his silk robe, scrolling through his phone with the manic energy of a teenager. He was not hungover. He was drunk on validation. "Look at this," he said, shoving his phone screen toward my face while I poured coffee. The CEO commented on the photo of us. He said we look like the cover of Forbes, 500 likes already. He took the mug from my hand without saying thank you. He leaned against the counter, surveying his domain, his chest puffed out. "Last night was perfect," he said, taking a loud sip. "You see, image is everything. As long as the picture looks right, nobody cares about the details." I looked at him over the rim of my own mug. He really believed it. He believed that if he polished the surface enough, the rot underneath would simply cease to exist. Was it really perfect? I asked, keeping my voice soft. He laughed, a dismissive sound. "Stop fishing for compliments," he said, winking. "You did good, babe. You played your part." Just then, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen, and the smug smile vanished instantly. He snatched the phone up. "I have to take this," he muttered. "Vendor issue." He did not go to his study. He unlocked the sliding glass door and stepped out onto the patio, sliding the door shut behind him. He thought the double-paned glass was soundproof. It was not. I walked over to the sink and cracked the kitchen window open just an inch. "I told you not to call me at the house," Miles hissed, his voice carrying in the crisp morning air. I could not hear the other side, but I knew it was Cameron. "Relax," Miles said, pacing near the grill. "Last night was fine. We almost got caught behind the curtain, but nobody saw. Harper is clueless. She is literally making me coffee right now." He laughed then. It was a conspiratorial, ugly laugh. "Yeah, I will see you at the recap in an hour. Wear the necklace." He hung up and walked back inside. I had already closed the window and was wiping down the counter. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," he said, breezing past me toward the stairs to get dressed. "Just a supplier panic." I handled it. 30 minutes later, Miles left in his Porsche. I waited exactly 15 minutes. Then I got into my SUV and followed him. I drove to the Ashmere Plaza, the glass and steel monolith where Vantrell leased the top 3 floors. The building looked imposing against the blue sky, a monument to corporate vanity. I knew the schedule. Today was the post-party recap. There would be bagels, coffee, and gift bags for the staff. It was a day for patting each other on the back. I pulled into the visitor parking lot but did not get out immediately. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, breathing in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts. This was the point of no return. I picked up my iPad. I opened the file manager. I looked at the PDF I had compiled. It was thorough. It was devastating. But generic file names would not catch eyes fast enough. I needed clickbait. I tapped the rename option. I typed in all caps, "Miles Holiday Party Receipts, PDF." Then I renamed the second file, the one containing the bank transfers and the photos of the necklace Cameron Vendor Payments, PDF. I checked the AirDrop settings. Everyone for 10 minutes. I slipped the iPad into my oversized tote bag. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I did not look like an avenging angel. I looked like a helpful wife dropping off a forgotten briefcase. That was my camouflage. I walked into the lobby. The security guard, an older man named Earl, smiled when he saw me. "Morning. Mrs. Ashford," he said. "Mr. Ashford just went up." "I know, Earl." I said, smiling back. "I just have something of his he needs for the meeting." He waved me through to the elevators. I pressed the button for the 7th floor. My heart was beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. The elevator doors slid open. The 7th floor was buzzing. The reception area was empty because everyone was gathered in the main pantry and lounge area down the hall. I could hear the chatter. I could smell the expensive dark roast coffee and the sugar from the pastries. I walked down the hallway. My heels sank into the plush carpet, making my approach silent. I reached the edge of the pantry. It was crowded. There were at least 40 people there, partners, junior associates, assistants, and the HR team. And there was Miles. He was standing in the center of the room, holding a bagel, laughing at something the CFO was saying. He looked golden. He looked untouchable. He was 10 meters away from me. He had no idea that the woman he called his safety net was about to pull the ground out from under him. I leaned against the wall, just outside his line of sight. I slipped my hand into my bag and unlocked the iPad. I saw the list of available devices populate the screen. Dave's iPhone, Sarah's MacBook, Vantrell Conf Room, 2, Miles's iPhone. The list grew longer and longer as the devices in the room broadcast their presence. I stood next to the gleaming chrome of the industrial coffee machine, invisible in the bustle of the morning rush. My thumb hovered over the glass screen of my iPad. I took a breath that tasted of filtered air and adrenaline. I tapped the icon labeled Everyone. The effect was instantaneous. It started with a single ping from a phone on the table. Then came another. Then 3 more. Within seconds, the room sounded like it was being hit by a digital hailstorm. Phones buzzed against the marble countertops. Apple Watches vibrated on wrists. Laptops chimed with the cheerful, terrifying sound of an incoming AirDrop request. Miles Holiday. Party receipts, PDF Cameron vendor payments, PDF. The chatter in the room died instantly. It was replaced by the confused murmurs of 40 people unlocking their devices at the same time. I watched heads bow in unison. I watched fingers tap. Except Julian, the director of internal compliance, was standing near the bagels. I knew Julian. I knew he had been stressed about the auditing of vendor expenses for months. I watched his face shift from mild annoyance to sharp, predatory focus as the file opened on his tablet. He swiped once. He swiped twice. His eyebrows pulled together. He looked up, not at me, but straight at Miles. Miles was still smiling midway through a joke when he noticed the silence. He looked around, confused. He saw a junior associate staring at her phone with her mouth slightly open. He leaned over, his confidence still intact. "What is so interesting?" Miles asked, grinning. "Stock market crash." He looked at her screen. The blood drained from his face so fast it looked like a magic trick. 1 second, he was the golden boy, and the next, he was a ghost. He stared at the itemized list of jewelry purchases, hotel bookings, and the monthly transfers to Vale that were categorized under consulting. At that exact moment, the double doors swung open. Cameron Vale walked in, holding a tray of coffees. She was wearing a sharp blazer, ready to play the professional. She stopped. She saw every pair of eyes in the room dart from their screens to her face. She saw Miles standing frozen, looking like a man who had just stepped on a landmine. She looked down at the phone of the assistant nearest to her. She saw her own name in bold letters on the PDF. The tray of coffees rattled in her hands. She did not drop it, but the shaking was uncontrollable. She knew. Miles snapped out of his trance. His eyes scanned the room wildly until they landed on me. I was still standing by the coffee machine, my iPad quietly tucked back into my bag. I was not hiding. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. He grabbed my arm, his grip hard and bruising, and dragged me toward the corner near the recycling bins. "Harper," he hissed, his voice shaking with a mix of rage and panic. "What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to kill me? Do you have any idea what this does to my image? He did not ask if I was hurt. He did not apologize for the betrayal." He asked about his image. I pulled my arm out of his grip. I smoothed the sleeve of my coat. "No," I said, my voice calm and clear in the sudden quiet of the room. "I am just returning the truth to the rightful owner." "You have to stop this," he whispered frantically, sweat beading on his forehead. Tell them it is a prank. Tell them you were hacked, Harper, please. I will give you whatever you want." Excuse me, Miles. The voice belonged to Julian. The compliance director stepped into our corner. He was not smiling. He held his tablet up. This file contains a transfer to a C. Vale dated October 12th, Julian said, his tone clinical. That is the same day we closed the deal with the Anderson account. You expensed a dinner at the Angus Barn that night for client entertainment. But this receipt in the file shows you were at the Umstead Hotel ordering room service with a guest. The room gasped. This was no longer just a scandalous office affair. This was fraud. This was the misappropriation of company funds. This was a federal crime in the making. Julian. Wait, Miles stammered, holding his hands up. I can explain. It is complicated. It looks very simple to me, Julian said. He turned to the HR director who had just walked up. We need to secure his laptop and his phone. Now. Miles looked back at me, his eyes wide with horror. He realized then that I had not just aired his dirty laundry. I had handed the authorities the murder weapon. I did not stay for the arrest. I did not stay to watch Cameron try to stutter out an explanation to the glaring eyes of her co-workers. I turned around and walked out of the pantry. I walked past the reception desk. I walked to the elevators. I pressed the button for the lobby. I did not look back. I had not come there to argue. I had come there to detonate the bomb. And as the elevator doors closed, shutting out the rising noise of the chaos on the 7th floor, I finally exhaled. My phone began to vibrate on the passenger seat like a dying insect. It did not stop. In the span of 30 minutes, Miles went through the 5 stages of grief via text message. First came the rage. You will pay for this. You have no idea who you are messing with. Then came the bargaining. Harper, please. We can talk about this. I can explain the transfers. It is not what it looks like. Then came the desperation. Pick up the phone. You are ruining my life over a misunderstanding. I did not reply. I watched the messages roll in with the detached interest of a scientist observing a lab rat hitting the shock button over and over again. He tried to flank me. My phone pinged with a message from Nora. He just called a mutual friend. He is telling people you are having a mental breakdown. He says you are unstable and off your medication. He is trying to get ahead of the story. I texted back. Let him talk. A man drowning will climb on top of anyone to breathe. Miles was not just drowning, he was thrashing. I received an automated notification from the Vantrell Legal Department on my personal email. Miles had filed an emergency internal complaint alleging that I had committed corporate espionage and unauthorized data theft. He was trying to turn a domestic dispute into a criminal act to save his security clearance. He wanted to paint me as a hacker, but I was a risk manager. I knew the difference between theft and discovery. Every single document I had AirDropped was legally obtained. The bank statements were from a joint account. The credit card bills were in his name but paid from marital funds. The screenshots were from a device left unlocked in our shared kitchen. I had not touched a single proprietary Vantrell document. I had only exposed how he spent his money. I called Dahlia. He is accusing me of a data breach. I said, let him, Dahlia said, her voice sounding like grinding gravel. I just sent the temporary restraining order on the assets. We are freezing the joint accounts. I listed it as dissipation of marital assets. He cannot access the funds to pay his legal team, let alone buy hush money for his girlfriend. Miles must have realized the accounts were frozen while he was driving, because the GPS tracker on the family car showed him speeding toward our house. He was going to scrub the scene. He burst into the house 20 minutes later. I watched the security feed on my phone from the safety of a coffee shop 3 miles away. He ran into the study. He threw open the drawers. He swept the papers off the desk. He was looking for my laptop. He was looking for the hard copies. He was looking for anything he could burn. But the house was empty. I had cleared out the safe, the filing cabinet, and my personal devices 2 days ago. The only thing left in the study was a stapler and a dusty printer. He stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving, spinning around in a circle. He looked small. Then came the notification I had been waiting for. My work email chimed. Transfer approved. Relocation to Savannah branch effective Monday. Temporary housing has been arranged. I had 72 hours. I had a way out. But the real blow came from a direction Miles never expected. I had access to his cloud account for 1 more hour before he thought to change the password. I saw an email come into his inbox. It was from Cameron Vale. It was CC'd to the Vantrell HR director and the legal team, to whom it may concern. I am writing to request identity protection. I was coerced into a vendor relationship by a senior partner who promised professional advancement in exchange for silence. I was used as a shield for his financial irregularities. I almost laughed out loud in the quiet coffee shop. Cameron was not a lover in love. She was a shark in a red dress. She saw the ship sinking, and instead of helping the captain, she was stealing the only life raft. She was framing herself as a victim of harassment to avoid being sued for fraud. Miles was not just facing a divorce now. He was facing an ethics investigation, a potential lawsuit from his own mistress, and the total annihilation of his career. I dialed Dahlia back. He is going to lose his job, I said, and the girl just turned on him. Good, Dahlia said. Do you want to settle now? He might sign anything just to make it stop. No, I said, watching Miles on the camera feed as he slumped into his office chair and put his head in his hands. The final blow must be at the end. I want him to sit in that empty house and realize something important. And what is that? Dahlia asked. I want him to realize that the person he called safe was actually the one holding the switch. By 12 o'clock, the empire Miles built on handshakes and hubris had collapsed. Vantrell Advisory Group did not wait for a press release. They placed him on mandatory administrative leave pending a forensic audit. I stood in the shadow of the parking garage and watched the security guard escort him out of the glass doors. He had to hand over his building badge and his company phone. It was the ultimate castration for a man who measured his worth by his access levels. But I was not done. Dahlia Reyes was a woman of her word. She did not send the divorce papers to our home, where Miles could hide them in a drawer. She sent a process server to the parking lot of Ashmere Plaza. I watched a man in a beige windbreaker intercept Miles right as he reached his Porsche. 3 of Miles's junior associates were walking to their cars at the same moment. They stopped. They watched the man hand Miles the thick envelope. They watched Miles's shoulders slump. The optics he worshipped had become his prison cell. He looked up and saw me standing by my SUV, keys in hand. He charged toward me. His eyes were red-rimmed and his tie was crooked. He looked like a man who had been running for days. You! He choked out, slamming his hand against the hood of my car. You did this. You are going to destroy my entire life just because of a kiss. You burned everything down just because I had a moment of weakness. I looked at him. I did not feel the old, familiar spike of fear. I felt nothing but a cold, hard clarity. No, I said, my voice slow and steady. I just stopped carrying the weight of the life you built on top of me, and I sent the truth you hid because you were too confident for too long. He let out a jagged laugh, running a hand through his hair. It is just a vendor payment. Harper, I can fix the accounting. I can smooth it over. But you made it public. Why? I reached into my bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was the summary of the fraud audit I had compiled. This is not just a kiss. Miles, this is grand larceny. You used our joint funds to pay a fake vendor. I did not ruin you. You did this to yourself the moment you signed that first check. He stared at the paper. The fight drained out of him, replaced by a desperate, oily charm. He moved closer, lowering his voice, trying to pull me into a conspiracy one last time. Listen to me. We can fix this. I have money in an offshore account. I can buy you a new house. I can get you anything you want. Just tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you were confused. If you stay quiet, I will take care of you. It was the same promise he had made on our wedding day. I will take care of you. But now I knew what it meant. It meant he would keep me in a cage and feed me scraps while he feasted. I looked him dead in the eye. I do not need you to take care of me, I said, opening my car door. I just need you to stop consuming my life. I got into the driver's seat and slammed the door. He banged on the window, his mouth moving, shaping new lies, new threats, new promises. I started the engine. I did not look at him. I put the car in reverse and backed out, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the parking lot he used to rule. I drove to the highway entrance. I pulled my phone out of the mount and tapped the screen. Location sharing off. I dialed Nora. She picked up on the first ring. I am leaving Raleigh. I said, "Finally." Nora breathed out. "Go. Just drive." I merged onto the interstate. My phone vibrated on the passenger seat. It was Miles. Then it was a text from his lawyer. Then a call from his mother. The phone buzzed and danced against the leather seat, but it sounded distant, like static on a radio station I was driving away from. For the first time in 5 years, my heart was beating at a normal rhythm. I drove for 3 hours until the skyline of Raleigh was just a memory in the rearview mirror. I pulled into a gas station somewhere near the border of South Carolina. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. I walked into the restroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked up at the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired. Yes, but the cracks were gone. The fear was gone. I whispered to my reflection, my voice echoing slightly against the cheap tile. This morning, I turned on AirDrop. And tonight, I turned back on my life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please comment below where you are listening from. I would love to know how far this story has traveled and hear your thoughts on Harper's revenge. Don't forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like the video, and hit the hype button to help this story reach even more people.